We all know this time of year gets pretty crazy with all the holidays coming up and the holiday shopping. Make sure you got all your gifts in order and all that sort of stuff. And as much as we would just, like to dump all that money into our cars, we usually make the right conscious decision and make sure that we enjoy the holidays with our friends and family. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your car can't enjoy the holidays too, or that you have to put those modifications on hold. Even though all those gifts and traveling might have our bank accounts looking drier than a Popeye's biscuit, there still are some modifications out there that won't break the bank and really go a long way. So today we're going to be going over the 5 best modifications that you can do when you are strapped for cash. Epic intro sequence. Real quick before we dive into this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We are on the road to hit 1 million subscribers. It would mean a ton if you could help us get there. And of course, if you're in need of some new wheels, tires, or suspension, don't forget to check out fitmentindustries.com. We are the experts in wheel fitment and we'll help you get the perfect fitment for your car, whatever it might be. Anyway, I think any car out there could benefit from some sort of ride height adjustment. Upgrading your suspension is by far one of the best things that you can do for your car and is one of the most beneficial modifications out there. We say that a lot, and that's because it's true. Now, your typical coilover suspension kit will run you anywhere from around $800 to $1,300, depending on the brand and what setup that you go with. And that's a pretty decent investment to take on, it really is. However, people seem to forget about the good old-fashioned lowering spring that is also an option. For a couple $100, you can drop your ride height and eliminate some of that nasty wheel gap and get your car looking good, looking nice and tidy. A decent set of springs or lowering springs from Eibach, Tane, and H&R will run you anywhere from around $200 to $400, so about half the cost of your typical coilover set. And depending on the spec, you can get a decent drop in ride height, anywhere from around 1.5 to 2 inches of drop. A lowered ride height can drastically improve the look of your car, even on stock wheels. The spring rate of lowering springs is also higher than that of OEM, so you're going to also help eliminate some of that body roll and then help improve handling as well. Even so, lowering springs have been making a sort of comeback in recent years due to how good OEM suspension has become. A lot of people want to keep that OEM suspension. You look at a lot of the new performance-oriented vehicles coming off the line in the last 5 years or so, like your BMWs, your Camaros, your Mustangs, and even the new Supra, all coming with electronic controlled damping. And I'm sure there's a lot out there that we didn't just talk or didn't just list there, but there's a ton of it coming out, especially with new vehicles. Typically, when you swap over to an aftermarket coilover setup on those cars, you'll lose that capability, which is why we've seen an increase in lowering springs popularity start to come up again. By being able to keep all that same functionality while lowering the ride height and increase in handling performance, it's really the best bang for your buck when you're on a budget. When you think about body kits nowadays, usually things like complete bumper replacements or 12-piece wide body kits and conversions come into mind, which all can be really neat. There's some really cool kits out there, but they also usually come at quite a bit of a cost as well, leaving us to assume that anything exterior-wise that you want to do to your car is going to cost a lot of money, which isn't necessarily the case. Number 2 on the list, we have a nice and subtle lip kit. Usually you can find some sort of lip kit out there for pretty much any vehicle. They typically come with a lip for the front, some side splitters or side skirt extensions depending on what vehicle you have, and some sort of rear spat to go under the rear bumper. And they're typically made out of a urethane material, which keeps the cost down quite a bit as well. These kits are a great way to modify the exterior appearance of your car without spending a ton of cash. They are typically pretty easy to install for the most part, and some even utilize the OEM mounting locations for things like under trays or splash guards or things like that. Really depends on what the kit is that you're getting. The trick with these is to, however, not go too cheap, because then it becomes a game of learning how to do body work to get everything to fit right or to extend things like 3/4 of an inch when your side skirts turn out too short. And yeah, that's not really what you're going to want to do when you're looking to do this on a budget. These kits can range anywhere from $200 all the way up to a couple $1,000s, usually when you get into like the carbon fiber pieces and that sort of thing. But odds are you can find yourself a decent kit that fits well and suits your budget pretty easily. Our suggestion would be to make sure if you get an unpainted kit, like a urethane kit or something like that, to actually go out and paint it. And even if it's rattle candy, you can still get a decent finish. You do enough prep work, spray it, even just gloss black or something like that, you can get it to look pretty good. Exterior modifications are great and are usually what we go after first, but it's important to remember that you can get just as much enjoyment out of modifying your interior as well as your exterior. Shift knobs are another one of those modifications that go a long way. It's something that you're going going to use every time you hop into the car, and can provide that right amount of customization just to give you a little bit better driving experience and, just enjoy it a little bit more. Really one of the easiest modifications you can do in, well, a matter of a couple minutes, as long as it takes you to unscrew the OEM shift knob. If you want to take it an extra step further, you can get a couple extra things like extensions, or maybe even a custom shift boot to match, or whatever you're feeling. It doesn't even have to be aftermarket in that sense. Maybe it's one that was only available in Japan for a certain amount of years, or maybe it was an upgraded version of your car, like a TRD spec or something like that. You can typically find them on eBay or forum classifieds pages, or even just Facebook Marketplace nowadays. And really just one of those modifications that you get to use every time you go for a drive. Modifications don't have to be this drastic change or overhaul of your vehicle. I think the best example of this is number 4 on the list for today, which is some clear or blacked out side markers. It seems that side markers on cars have just been getting bigger and more drastic and just a little bit uglier. Some manufacturers do a good job of getting them to flow into like the color scheme or the actual design of the car, but some are just a downright eyesore. Changing out those amber side markers can really clean up the look of a car, especially if it's a black painted car or a white painted car. Depending on the color scheme you're going with, either clear or smoked side markers are a small change that can really make a good amount of difference and adds a nice clean touch to the car. Usually you can find direct replacements for these, and they're typically LED powered with an amber light or some sort of switchback light that switches from white to amber depending on whether it's on or off. When I picked up some for my FRS, they were around 60 or 70 bucks for a pair, which I think is pretty standard across the board, and they were one of the best things that I could have done to clean up the front end of that car and get rid of those big ugly orange side markers. All these mods are great and can really add that little bit of extra to your car to make you really enjoy it just that much more. But most of these are just for appearance or aesthetic. What about performance? Well, there is one modification that can be picked up for relatively cheap and can really have a decent impact on your performance, at least further down the road. And that would be an aftermarket intake. Prices on these things really do vary across the board and even go down to what type of vehicle you own, and will have an impact on the price as well. But usually around $300 will put you in the ballpark for a decent aftermarket intake that you can actually benefit from. Now, you're not going to see insane crazy horsepower numbers or really even be able to tell much of a difference right away, but it can prove itself later down the road, especially with a tune and especially for boosted platforms. You can gain a decent amount of power. But in the meantime, you can enjoy all those induction noises, which are super fun, and it's a good way to add a little bit of spice to your engine bay and, clean things up a little bit. The truth is, there are a ton of little things out there that you can do to your car to keep, your need of modifying things under control and not go crazy until the next big purchase comes up. But these were the 5 that really stuck out to us. And the good news is, if you want to go all out, you really can with today's world of online shopping and e-commerce. There are a ton of options available for things like financing that can allow you to purchase those bigger items and pay them off over a little bit of time. Something that we even offer as well with wheels, tires, and suspension, allowing you guys to be able to rock a new setup for, when springtime comes, or if you need winter tires or something like that. You can have it set up for a monthly payment that's less than, your phone payment per month. The best part is too, you can get as little as 0% interest on some of these, which makes it a lot easier to deal with, a little bit easier to swallow. And we've actually made it really easy. If you go to fitmentindustries.com, you can actually show prices by monthly payment by toggling that a little affirm slider on the top of the page, so you can go check that out. But other than that, let us know down in the comments below if there's any that's like a solid go-to. You pick up a vehicle, these are the first little modifications that you make to truly make it your own down in the comments below. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out wheels, tires, and suspension like lowering springs over at fitmentindustries.com. I'm Gels. We'll see you later. Peace.